Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the CIACA conference call. Warm greetings to all who are linked to this conference call. This is a very special conference call entirely dedicated to the General Assembly of the Focolare movement, which ended a short while ago. We are connected with the whole world live, and with us are also the 362 participants in the Assembly. At the Assembly, who elected the President, the Co-President, the General Councilors, and they have worked on the guidelines of the Focolare movement for the next 6 years. Many of them are here in this hall. So greetings to everyone near and far. Let's get right to the heart of the matter and see what happened at the Focolare Assembly. An assembly composed of people of different ages and vocations, Christians from various churches, a Jewish rabbi, 2 Muslims, a Buddhist, and some with non-religious beliefs. What happened during the assembly? Let's watch now.
The General Assembly of the Focolare movement took place entirely online from the 24th of January to the 7th of February 2021. It is the third assembly since the death of Focolare founder Chiara Lubich. There were 359 participants from all over the world, representing the various cultures, generations, vocations, Christian traditions and religions present in the movement. The assembly should have been held at the beginning of September 2020, but it was postponed because of the pandemic. The dicastery for the laity, the family and life allowed us to hold the assembly later and to hold the entire event online. On the 31st of January, after holding a telematic election, Margaret Karam became the third president of the Focolare movement. She was elected with a 2/3 majority. She will lead the movement for the next 6 years. On the 1st of February, Jesus Moran was re-elected for a second mandate as co-president. On the 3rd and 4th of February, the election of the 22 councillors was held. Their job is to assist the president in the various aspects of the governance of the movement. Many topics were discussed during the General Assembly, a fruit of the more than 3,000 proposals which arrived from all over the world. The aim was to discover new and practicable ways to fraternity, which can respond to the challenges and questions of humanity today, both globally and locally.
We are delighted to have His Eminence Cardinal Kevin Farrell, Prefect of the Dicastery for the Laity, Family and Life, and Mrs. Linda Ghisoni, Undersecretary of the Dicastery. We're really happy to have you here among us. Your Eminence, the whole Focolare community is happy if you could tell us something.
Dear friends belonging to the Focolare movement, it is with pleasure that I address all of you here present and all those connected by telematic means. First, I would like to thank Dr. Maria Voce for her service over these years as President of the Work of Mary. The task of succeeding the founders, Chiara Lubich, is not an easy one. It involves taking on the responsibility of guiding the life and apostolate of this vast and richly structured movement that is now present in many countries of the world and in many spheres, not only ecclesial, but also social, academic and cultural. I thank you for your generous service. I congratulate the new president, Dr. Margaret Karam, who was elected at the assembly that has just ended, and I wish her wisdom, frankness, prudence, and decisiveness in guiding the Focolare in the coming years. so that the work of Mary might increasingly adhere to the great plans that God has in store for all of you. They are plans that require your docile and courageous adherence to His will. Last year, you celebrated the centenary of Chiara's birth. Although 100 years may seem like a very long time, I am convinced that the movement born from her charism is still in its infancy. As the Holy Father said, I think we can say that Chiara's institutions are seeds that are still waiting to sprout fully and bear the fruits that God wishes. The new governance leaders, but also all of you members of the movement, therefore, are fully involved in this great mission of making what has been sown bear fruit. This link-up was decided by Chiara herself as an occasion to come together as a family, to reflect together, to make known the initiatives that fulfill each one's commitment, to share joys and common concerns, and above all, to return to the fundamental inspirations, the deep spiritual motives that must be at the heart of your whole life and that must never be lost sight of. This sharing of hearts and lives will help you to rediscover the meaning and joy of belonging to the spiritual family that God has raised up. I invite you, first of all, to accept with gratitude and docility the words addressed to you by the Holy Father in yesterday's audience. They are the sure path that the Lord Himself marks out for you, for our growth, for our sanctification, for the concrete exercise of ecclesial communion. The work of Mary, following the charism that is proper to it, aspires to achieve an ever deeper unity within itself, within the Church, among Christians and among all people. In pursuing this goal, which is so central to the movement, it is important to ensure the right amount of freedom and personal autonomy within each Focolare and within all the other areas of association and governance in your movement. Therefore, do not be afraid to give space to parousia, to speaking frankly with one another, listening to everyone. You know very well that unity does not mean uniformity. It means achieving a communion in the image of divine communion, which preserves differences, enhances them, and leads them back to a higher union that manifests the richness of all. Dear friends, I would like to assure you that the Church has great confidence in you, as the popes have always shown throughout the history of the movement. The Church admires and supports the evangelical spirit that animates you, appreciates the abundant fruits that have come forth from you over the years, the religious awakening of so many lay people, the many lives consecrated to God, the vocations to the priesthood and to married life, the countless works of apostolate that you carry out with passion and competence, and above all, the incalculable testimonies of holiness by the men and women Focolarini who have lived and are living exemplary lives, being, as it were, Christian yeast for the Church and society in so many regions of the world. For so many reasons, the Church will always take care to accompany you with her maternal receptiveness and with the paternal vigilance of her authority to support you on the path of growth. May the Lord bless you, protect you, and make you grow in unity and love. Thank you all.
Eminenza,
This applause says our profound thanks to you, Your Eminence, important words of encouragement, and we will treasure your words. I would like to link to what you have said. You have named Maria Emmaus Voce, our president for 12 years. I would like to call Emmaus. Perhaps the world wants to express to you our planetary thank you, and we would like to tell you our big, big love. Thank you, Emmaus. We know that at the assembly, you have also given a very important talk about holiness. We hope that we would be able to listen to it.
I think this was also one of those inspirations that come from the Holy Spirit, because we were preparing this assembly and I felt this need, this desire to do something concrete, to respond to the needs of humanity. And I felt there was a kind of anguish within to do this. And I thought, but is this the most important thing? Haven't we learned that the most important thing is our being rather than doing? And what is our being? If not that each one of us puts ourselves in front of God and says, God has looked at me. I've been looked at with the love of God and impressed in my heart. I have His love, and may I be a witness to it. Why? Not so much that I speak about it, that I do actions, but that with my life and also with my words, but also above all to witness this to the whole world and to show it to the world. How? With the words of the gospel that Chiara taught us to live moment by moment. That very, very special words from the gospel with love, mutual love, which makes possible the presence of God. And only God can transform the world. The Pope and all those speak to us, say to us that Christianity grows by attraction, not because of proselytization, because of extraordinary activities, but because each one of us feels that we have to do something to grow in this journey of sanctity, holiness, made of doing God's will in the present moment, moment by moment, a holiness for all, which everyone can live. And I really want this to remain as the most precious thing that remains from this assembly. Of course, as Chiara said, I don't need to add anything else. And it's something in which I myself want to commit myself, first of all, to commit myself to reach that sanctity that God calls me to, so that the world can see my witness and together with me, the witness of each one of you. And I'm sure that each of you wanted to thank me, but I want to thank hundreds of messages, WhatsApp, letters, gifts of all sorts coming from all parts of the world, and truly are a witness of this family which is bonded together in this journey, this family that Chiara has formed here on earth, which is growing, a family that I'm proud to participate in, to be together with all of you and to follow with each of you on this road. Thanks to each one of you.
Thank you, Emmaus. Thank you from the whole world. And now let's get to know Margaret Karam, the new elected president of the Focolare, with this short biographical video file.
Margaret Marie Karam was born in 1969 in Haifa, Israel. Her family were Catholic Palestinians. She attended the Carmelite School in Haifa, studying Arabic, Hebrew, English, French and Italian. Aged 14, she came to know the Focolare spirituality, which became the path for her whole life. At 23, she was consecrated to God as a Focolarina living in community. In 1984, she moved to the United States, where she graduated in Judaism at the American Jewish University in Los Angeles. She returned to Jerusalem and worked there for 14 years at the Italian consulate. Here she became responsible for the Focolare community. Her commitment for dialogue between cultures and faiths continued to develop. For this work, she received several international awards. Since 2014, she has been based in Italy with various roles of responsibility at the International Focolare Centre. On the 31st of January this year, with a large majority, the General Assembly elected her President of the Focolare movement. She is the third woman and the first non-European to hold this office after Chiara Lubich and Maria Voce.
Welcome amongst us to Margaret Karam, President of the Focolare. Big welcome, and to Jesus Moran, re-elected as co-president for a second mandate.
Davvero benvenuti.
As we were saying, we want to get better, Margaret. And from the video, we've seen that from your origins, you summarize, you encapsulate the contradictions and hopes of a world that aspires to peace. Who is Margaret Karam, this woman born in Israel of Palestinian origin?
Let me tell you something of myself. I was born from a Palestinian family who have lived in Palestine before of the declaration of the State of Israel. I am the second of 4 brothers and sisters. And from small, I have received this education. I'm a Catholic, and my parents, living in the city of Haifa, the region of Galilee, a city where 3 religions monotheistic religions are living together. They had desired that we would grow with a very solid faith rooted in God. So they have educated us from small in this way. I went to a Carmelite school where I have received my education, and in this school we were all Arabs, but majority are Muslims. So since I was small, from I was 6 years old until 18 years old, I have always lived together. Somebody who is different. But what I feel that was really placed in my heart, let me share to you an episode to let you know who I am. When I was 5 years old, I was playing like many other children there outside the house, and my neighbors were Jews. There was also much tension in our city, and they would see us, they would insult us. I remember one day I was so much insulted. I went home, I was desolate, I was crying. And my mother said, "Now dry up your tears, go out, call these children." I think they were 5 or 6. Call them, invite them. to our home. What will I do? I'll go out and call these children. I was really suffering inside of me. But then I did it because I wanted to obey to my mother. So they came, and my mother was cooking this, preparing this Arab bread, and gave to them a piece of this bread and said, "Bring this home." So a piece of bread to each one. And this gesture, after this one, the next day, their parents came to our house to get to know us, who we are. And from this small gesture, I learned a lesson for the whole of my life. That love casts away hatred. If I want to change society, I have to learn, I have to go beyond my feelings and love that neighbor that God has placed beside me.
We can say that you were breathing an atmosphere of dialogue from a very early age. Now on the screen, we'll see some photos of a historic moment, June the 8th in 2014, in the Vatican Gardens, the Invocation for Peace. Pope Francis was present, His Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew I, and the then Israeli President, Shimon Peres, and the President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, were present, and you read the prayer of St. Francis before them. I think it was an unforgettable moment. Also, the Pope yesterday at the private audience remembered it and reminded us that peace is a process which has to be followed. I'd like to ask you of your thoughts on this.
I think, yes, even if we don't see peace yet, but it was also a time of promise. I think that peace is a gift of God. We have to ask Him that gift. And I have to continue to believe together with others that we have to continue to work to build peace, because peace should be built in our everyday life, in small gestures with people who are beside us. What we can do is to accept the other who is different from me, who belongs to another religion, who belongs to another culture. And so I believe in peace. I don't see it yet in the Middle East, but I am full of trust that what we sow, even in little, we have to continue sowing, so that when God wants, there will be this peace. Also this prayer, certainly. What for was that prayer? What was it for? It was very important. It was an invocation. It was an important moment, but then it was a luminous moment that we have to look up to. Because prayer, as we were saying, prayers of those from the Holy Land, it's not that it produces something, but prayers generate. So we have to continue to generate peace within our heart, first of all, and together with the others.
And now we go back to the General Assembly of the Focolare, and which has just ended. The assembly took place completely online. This was no small challenge that involved elections, plenary sessions, and separate working groups. Let's see the team that worked behind the scenes.
2, 1, sigla e mark spotlight, grazie.
If we wanted to photograph the control room of a worldwide assembly like that of the recently concluded Focolare movement, we would need a wide-angle lens capable of going from Chicago to Brussels, from Italy to the Philippines to Brazil.
Ok, affianchiamo I moderatori.
In fact, behind the scenes of this assembly, there's a body, an international group of people aged between 24 and 67. This group work in a professional way, but above all in great harmony.
Torniamo, 1.
With a growing synergy, both from the professional point of view and in relationships. The main task of a telematic assembly is to ensure that all the elements come together in order to guarantee validity.
Ciao a tutti, adesso partecipanti entrano.
For example, the way of admitting people to the sessions was by photo recognition of every participant, each of whom had been assigned a QR code. And the voting system was designed in such a way that every online vote was free, secure, and secret. Each plenary session of the Assembly was simultaneously translated into 5 languages through 34 translators from 6 nations, together with the movement's international team. As well as the plenary meeting sessions, the 359 participants could also meet in smaller groups. They could opt into the technician's room, relaxation and prayer rooms, for example. Every day, the members of the movement received text and video updates. There were also press releases and other materials for the media.
We've seen what happened behind the scenes at this online assembly of the Focolare, and now we want to get to know some of the participants. We've contacted 2 of them, Jenny from Myanmar, who was able to follow the assembly in difficult situation, and Bishop Michael Mulvey from the Corpus Christi in Texas.
Sono Jenny, sono da Myanmar.
I'm Jenny from Myanmar.
Non sono pienamente nel presente in questi
I have to
giorni
confess
per tutto quello che accade
that
nel mio
it was not
paese.
easy to always be fully present
veramente un
these
momento
days
di
in this
buio.
assembly.
E questi
It is
giorni
truly
io
a time of
contemplo
darkness. And these
c'è
days I
qualcosa
contemplate that there
buona
is
anche nel buio.
something good
Io trovo
even in the
l'abbandono di
darkness.
Gesù
I
il
find
perché.
the abandonment of Jesus.
Da buio
It
io
is the
vedo
reason.
la gente di diverse posizioni si mettono
From
insieme
darkness, I
per
see
trovare
people
una
from
luce.
different places.
E
They
la
come together
generosità
to find the
tra i
light.
popoli.
And they
Comunione
find
di beni,
generosity among peoples.
assistenza tecnica
There's communion of goods,
e morale,
technical and moral assistance,
e dare il coraggio nel lottare per la giustizia.
people giving courage
Sento che ci
just to fight
porta
for
in un momento
justice.
più concentrato
I
perché
feel
non
that it
sappiamo
brings
domani,
us to a more
ma
focused
abbiamo solo il
moment
presente.
because we do not know tomorrow.
E
We
mi
only have
trovo
the present.
Dio in questo momento.
And
è
I
bello.
find God
Io sento
in this
tanto
moment,
coraggio
and it is
e
beautiful.
unità e gratitudine
I feel so much courage and
ciascuno
unity and
della
gratitude
mia
to
famiglia
each
spirituale
of my spiritual
tutto il
family
mondo.
from all over the world.
Grazie.
To be a part of this assembly was a great joy for me because I know we're all in a new adventure, both in humanity, in the church, and also with this spirituality. So it was a great joy. During these past few days with the assembly, it's been an incredible experience. I think we live in a world, I was thinking, of being more competitive, whether we look at the world across with economics, politics, we always seem to be in competition. I just see a vision of hope in what we're doing. I see a great opportunity for humanity to really open itself to the Holy Spirit through the process of loving one another, listening to one another, and coming together for the benefit of all. I know for myself in my diocese, in the church, that it can be a great opening to new ideas, to new approaches in our efforts to bring people together and to work for those on the margins, for those who are left out, and those who have no voice. Here they have a voice.
Jesus, I think many of who are linked here know you, so we would like to show your biography with this short video.
Jesus Moran was born on the 25th of December 1957 in Navalperales de Pinares in Spain into a family of Christian merchants. At the age of 16, he got to know the Gen, the young people of the Focolare movement, and became more and more involved in the movement's activities. He graduated in philosophy from the Autonomous University of Madrid. In 1977, after a period of formation in Italy, he gave himself to God in the community of the Focolare. From 1996 to 2004, he was the Focolare delegate for Chile and Bolivia. There he was ordained a priest on the 21st of December 2002. From 2004 to 2008, he was co-responsible for the movement in Mexico and Cuba. He gained qualifications in dogmatic theology from the Pontifical Catholic University of Santiago de Chile and a doctorate in theology from the Pontifical Catholic University of Santiago, as well as a doctorate in theology at the Pontifical Lateran University in Rome. At the 2008 General Assembly of the Focolare movement, he was elected General Councillor. In 2009, he became a member of the Abba School, an interdisciplinary study centre of the Focolare movement. He was elected co-president of the Focolare movement on the 13th of September 2014 and reconfirmed on the 1st of February this year.
Eccoci Jesus, una domanda per te ora. Jesus, a question. Should we do this assembly if the online modality would allow a real participation of everyone? And then it was decided to hold this assembly in this way. In your opinion, how did it go? What guidelines have emerged for the next 6 years?
I think it went very well. Cardinal Farrow and Linda Ghisoni trusted us completely. I think it went very well. There really is something miraculous about the way it went, because from one point of view, it was crazy to hold an assembly dealing with 4 themes and 19 topics while working in groups and not always in plenary sessions. We used different platforms, and as you saw, we had a wonderful staff that was really competent. Then obviously there was the help of the grace of the Holy Spirit. What are the themes we focused on? Now, it is not easy to give a summary, but if I wanted to summarize almost for myself, I would say this. We wanted to start from reality. What is this reality? It is the world that is suffering. A vast, enormous world. Those who are excluded suffer inequalities, the rejected, those who suffer abuses, all those who do not have a place in our world, the COVID sufferers. It is all this which for us, in the light of the charism, are the faces of Jesus crucified and abandoned. We wanted to start from reality, to meet these faces of Jesus crucified and abandoned. This is a fundamental theme. There are many other themes within this, but this is fundamental. Second, identity, our identity. In reality, our identity is what we have said, that is, to go to meet Jesus crucified and forsaken. Who are we? Someone spoke of a prophetic collective. Chiara said, we are a people born of the gospel. Therefore, we could say a prophetic collective anchored to the word. This was important, because otherwise we won't even have the strength to go and encounter suffering. That is, if we are not anchored to the word. A third thing would be the style. That is, with what style do we want to do this? A synodal style, the Pope said. Therefore, a synodal governance and then intergenerational style. This was strongly emphasized. That is, we really want to work with young people. Do all this with young people. So young people are no longer something we are concerned about They are with us. They are our partners in all of this. Therefore, I would say three keywords emerged: proximity, action, and contemplation. This is how I would summarize it.
A synthesis that we'll be able to go in depth with. And now, many of you yesterday followed it live. On February the 6th, the Pope received the participants in the General Assembly in a private audience. Here you can see some images. Maria Voce was welcomed with deep affection by Pope Francis, who introduced him to the new president, Margaret Karam, who thanked the Holy Father. The Pope, to encourage the journey of the Focolare, offered some reflections, which he expressed in 3 points. So the points: how to face the time post-Foundress, the importance of crises in life, and living the spirituality with consistency and realism. We'll see a few extracts from the Pope's talk.
The post-founder period, 12 years after Chiara Lubich left for heaven, you are called to overcome the natural bewilderment and also a decrease in numbers, in order to continue to be a living expression of the founding charism. It is a question of remaining faithful to the original source, striving to rethink it and express it in dialogue with the new social and cultural situations. This attitude of openness and dialogue will help you to avoid any self-absorption. This avoidance of all self-absorption, which never comes from the good spirit, is our hope for the whole Church. To be aware of self-centeredness, which always leads to defending the institution to the detriment of individuals, and which can also lead to justifying or covering up forms of abuse. Instead, it is better to be courageous and to face problems with parousia and truth, always following the indications of the Church, which is Mother, the true Mother, and responding to the demands of justice and charity. The second theme I would like to propose to you is the importance of crisis. You cannot live without crisis. Crises are a blessing. Every crisis is a call to new maturity. Today, there is much emphasis on the importance of resilience in the face of difficulties. That is, the ability to face them positively, drawing opportunities from them. It is the duty of those with responsibilities at all levels to work to address community and organizational crises in the best, most constructive way. On the other hand, the spiritual crisis of individuals, which involve the intimacy of the individual and the sphere of conscience, must be dealt with prudently by those who do not hold positions of governance at all levels within the movement. And this has been a good rule of the Church since time immemorial, which applies not only to moments of crisis in people, but also in general to their accompaniment in the spiritual journey. It is that wise distinction between the external and internal forum that the experience and tradition of the Church teaches us and is indispensable. Finally, the third point, living spirituality with consistency and realism. The final aim of your charism coincides with the intention presented to the Father in his final great prayer, that all may be one, united. With regard to acting outside the movement, I encourage you to be witness of closeness with fraternal love that overcomes every barrier and reaches every human condition. With regard to your effort within the movement, I urge you increasingly to promote synodality, so that all members, as depositories of the same charism, may be co-responsible for and participate in the life of the work of Mary and its specific goals. Thank you so much for your joyful witness to the gospel that you continue to offer to the Church and to the world.
A really extraordinary gift which we'll be able to go in depth with and go back to. But at the moment now, I'd like to ask Margaret a question that many of us who were able to follow yesterday, there were moments of dialogue with the Holy Father. What did you say to one another?
It's not a secret. So we were with Maria Voce and Jesus Moran, and we wanted also to offer to the Holy Father a small gift. So we gave him an envelope for his poor people and a plant, that one of the olive tree. And Maria Voce said to him, this plant, this is also the symbol of peace. We are just at the beginning. This is a small plant. We will grow. And he looked at me and said, touching the plant like this, in this way, touching the soil. This plant, because I also said, Holy Father, this plant could also be a sign of peace. Also because in this assembly, we talk of integral ecology. And so with this plant, this is like our symbol of our commitment. And he said, this plant, you should give water. You should nourish it. And then he touched the little branches. And then you have to prune. So courage, ahead, go ahead. So it was a very beautiful moment. It was very profound, very deep. We have to understand how to nourish it and to prune. And it was also a joy that the Pope had greeted each one of us, because in that greeting, I was moved really. No, it was not foreseen. He had to go out already, but then there he saw the whole world representing each one. Each one was able to say what each one has in his or her heart. And he was assuring them, encouraging each one. Because at times we were also happy. He was also joking. But then the mate, like in the Argentine. It was a very family meeting. I hope that it was also our desire that to be able to give joy to the Pope. We hope that we were able to give him joy.
Thank you, Margaret. We're coming to the conclusion. A final, very short question. What do you have in your heart for these next 6 years?
That's a difficult question. That we could be happy, witnesses of that announcing of the gospel that is lived. And for us, it means to live unity, but joyful witnesses, to bear witness to the risen Lord. This is what I have in my heart at this moment. I would like also, I don't know if I could say, I make a special greetings. First of all, I would like to thank, this is also an opportunity to be linked with the whole world. I have received so many messages, so many letters, even of important people in the church, of the various churches, of different religions, Jews, Muslims. I was really inundated with messages and I could not answer to anyone. Also because we are still in the middle of the assembly, we were working, and I wanted to live these days. So these days were so full, and I want to say, to reply to the letters in peace. So I take advantage of this opportunity to thank all the Focolare spread all over the world in the various continents, to thank them with all my heart for the love and unity, that affection that I have felt right away in many ways. And if you allow me, I would like to greet in a special way in Arabic our community of the Middle East. I would like to say to them thank you, but I will say Arabic.
لكل عائلة الفوكولاري بالشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا شكرا لمحبتكم ولوحدتكم.
And to those of the Jewish language,
שלום וחיבוק גדול. שלום.
Shalom is peace and a great big embrace to all.
Grazie Margaret.
Margaret, thank you.
I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone. I like to answer messages, but this time I just don't find how to do it. So I thank all those who have written to me, much less than to you, Margaret, but a lot. The messages were really full of affection and love. We Spaniards have many Arabic words, but I hope you will teach me at least a few more phrases to be able to speak this beautiful language.
Grazie. Vi ringraziamo. Grazie
Thank you,
Margaret.
Margaret.
Grazie
Thank you, Jesus.
Grazie.
Amos.
Ringraziamo Sua Eminenza.
Thank you, Your Eminence, to all of you for this moment of family, planetary family. Before greeting you, we're a family who living on earth. We want to remind you of Jean-Paul Brotel, one of our collaborators who worked for the conference, for these conference calls at the Center for Santa Chiara, who passed away on February the 2nd. We've come to the end of this special edition, and the next conference call will be on March the 27th at 12 noon. To all of you who are following us, thank you and goodbye. Greetings to all who are following us throughout the world. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you again soon.
让我们看看他们是否在线。Mark 下面你们在线吗？